Americans are leaving. They're leaving this country in record numbers. But the amount of Americans that want to leave, that's got to be a new record in itself. 63% of Gen Z want to leave the United States. Their main reason being there is no economic future here. Okay, 68% of people in this country say that they are surviving rather than living. 52% of millennials also want to leave the United States. While Gen X and boomers want to stay put, only 25 and 26% of them respectively have any interest in leaving the United States. And while yes, there is a huge gap of people who want to leave and people who can leave and people who end up actually leaving, this is worrying, right? Who's going to be left in the country if all the young people want to go somewhere else? Where do these people want to go, you might ask? Well, the top 5 countries that they want to move to are Canada, the UK, Australia, France, and Italy. There is a tidal wave of people that want to leave this country. And I can't say that I blame them. Life here is hard. I'm not saying it's a bed of roses anywhere else, but here it just feels impossible.
Americans are leaving the USA more than ever in modern history, and not just retirees or digital nomads. We are talking about working class families, young professionals, and even middle class. People who once believed that America was a land of opportunity, but are now realizing it has become the land of exhaustion, and many feel that the American dream is already dead. Everywhere you turn, it is a struggle. Groceries are at a record high. Rent has become unaffordable. And healthcare, one hospital bill could erase your entire savings. Many Americans are now saying, I'm not living anymore. I am just surviving. The system feels rigged, It's all about work, taxes, and bills. No matter how much you make, it never feels like enough. So let's have a look. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing so you never miss any update from my videos. Let's dive into it.
Why are so many Americans leaving the U.S.? You notice more and more people are packing and moving abroad, and honestly, it's not hard to see why. Life in the U.S. is a nonstop grind. You work, you pay bills, you stress, you don't really get to live. You're just existing. And I always say to you guys, you're not depressed, you just live in the U.S. Because the truth is, this environment wears you out. The politics, the rising of the crime, the constant pressure, it never ends. And let's not get on the food. It feels like every week there's a recall, another GMO, some more pesticides, more chemicals. And you know the saying, you are what you eat. So if they keep filling everything up with junk, that means you're actually junk. You don't really get to be healthy. And don't forget about the healthcare. One bill here can wipe out your savings. But in other countries, you get better care for lower costs. Fresher food, calmer lifestyle, and suddenly leaving doesn't sound so crazy after all, right? So for many Americans, it's not about running away. It's about moving forward to something better. So leaving the U.S. is not giving up the dream. It's actually living the American dream.
Americans have started to leave the US because of the rise of authoritarianism. And this is something that should absolutely not be taken lightly. I literally saw a report this morning from Australia talking about how they have some applications from this year of people seeking human rights shelter because they are scared of what's going to happen to them. They want to have a backup plan if things go to shit so they can go to Australia and get a visa. And that's absolutely nothing new. Canada has also opened up a program to Americans that may potentially want to leave the country as a sort of political refugee. While that might sound crazy, we are absolutely entering into an era where this is something that people are starting to consider. And even some professors at Yale and other colleges in the US who teach about the rise of authoritarianism and fascism have left the US or have at least started to make plans to leave. And if that's not a wake-up call to other Americans to rally together to join the fight, I don't know what is. The president should not be able to send armed troops to terrorize American citizens. People should not be able to be kidnapped regardless of whether they're foreign born or American born, nor should they disappear. So I would really look long and hard into your decision to be apolitical right now because things are changing rapidly in a very bad direction.
The American dream is to leave. The American dream is to feel safe when you're in a public space and not have to scan for the exits everywhere you go, even at the grocery store. The American dream is to be able to eat real food. The American dream is to be able to afford food that is good for you and healthy and not have to pay an arm and a leg for the whole foods. The American dream is to have health care, to not even have medical bankruptcy as an option. The American dream is to live somewhere where you work to live, not live to work, where you actually have vacation days, and if you're sick, you can call in sick and it doesn't count against you. The American dream is to live somewhere where being told that this is the greatest country in the world and everywhere else is unsafe and scary isn't shoved down your throat since you're in kindergarten. The American dream is to leave.
We've been asked why we're leaving the United States for Mexico. We've been criticized.
Accused of giving up, of turning our backs, of abandoning a fight.
But here's the truth. We're not leaving because we stopped fighting. We're leaving because we understand history.
And we know how this goes.
They never start with everyone.
In the 1930s, they began with one group. Jewish families were dehumanized, detained, and disappeared, but it didn't stop there.
LGBTQ plus people were next. Educators, activists, disabled folks, women who dared to speak, and anyone who refused to comply.
Fascism doesn't knock, it breaks in, and right now we see the pattern.
Immigrants being rounded up, rights stripped away, children in camps.
But look again, it's also in the attacks on queer lives, and the laws targeting trans youth, and the silencing of educators, and the books pulled from shelves, and the dismantling of universities, and the hollowing out of the Department of Education.
We are part of those communities. We are women, we are queer, we are educators.
And we know those that waited in the past, those who told themselves it won't get worse, didn't live long enough to be proven wrong.
We're not running, we're surviving.
And yes, we know we are privileged to be able to leave. So many people don't have that choice.
That's exactly why we won't waste it.
We're going to use that privilege on purpose.
To be a resource, a voice, a safe point of contact, a witness from the outside who can still speak freely.
From outside the fire, you can still shout, the house is burning.
We're not giving up on justice. We're building a different kind of resistance, one that isn't silenced, surveilled, or swallowed.
This isn't exile, it's strategy, and we are not the first.
History remembers those who got out and spoke out.
We're choosing to survive, to speak, to serve, just with a new view and a safer distance.
So if you don't understand why we're leaving, look at who they're coming for.
The immigrants are only the beginning.
And they won't be the last ones to go.
I made it out of the U.S. The burdens that fall off of your shoulders when you leave that place. It's like waking up out of the Matrix. It feels like opening your eyes for the first time. It feels like dreams can actually live outside of your mind. It feels like living in humanity and not in a simulation. This is just my experience. I know there's a lot of people that love it in the US, and I love that so much for you. But not everybody feels that way, and that's also okay.
3 hard truths about leaving the US no one is talking about. Making new friends in a different country, a different culture, a different language, a different mindset, a different way of life. It can be lonely and depressing as fuck. Everyone thinks leaving the US means life is cheaper. It is not reality. The truth is, it is very difficult to find a good, decent paid job where you can have a decent life. Your whole life abroad depends and revolves around this piece of paper, the visa. Paperwork, money, approvals, and the visa status is like having a clingy ex. Right? The government's always checking in just to make sure you're not too comfortable. But here's the flip side. Even with all of this, leaving the US was the best decision I ever made. You grow in ways you can't imagine. You see the world completely differently. You learn to handle life on a whole new level. So if you ever thought or are dreaming of leaving the US, I promise you, do it. It will change your life forever.
So Americans, rich and poor, are packing their bags and leaving the United States of America. From the first 6 months of this year compared to the first 6 months of last year, Americans moving to other countries has increased by 90%. That's right, 90%. And so that's almost double where it was last year. And so, folks, people are seeing the craziness and the chaos and the instability and the violence, and they're just leaving. They're just leaving.
People ask me, why did you move from the U.S. to Dominican Republic? And reason number one is the growing tension and division in the United States. Everybody in the United States seems to be on edge about something. To me, it seems like everyone is like a ticking time bomb just waiting to explode. It also feels like everybody's just looking to be offended by something. You can't say anything, you can't do anything because somebody out there is looking to get offended. And I'll take it a step further. The political tension and division also has gotten out of hand. We look at everybody over there as either you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, which is dumb. I don't know how we got so invested in these political parties that we'll damage relationships with long-term friends, families, jobs, and all this stuff, man. It is just crazy. I remember the time we used to debate who was better, Tupac or Biggie, LeBron or Jordan, McDonald's or Burger King, ham or burger, peanut butter or jelly, the Jetsons or the Flintstones. And now we don't do none of that no more. We're debating about politics, man. I don't have time for that, man. And not saying people are not into politics here, because they are, but not to the point, at least in my experience, to the point where they'll destroy their family. They won't talk to their kids. They won't talk to their husband. They'll get divorced. Not to that point. I hadn't seen it here. So that's number one. Number two is the high cost of living. The cost of living in the United States has just got bad, way, way bad. Before I moved here, I was living in Fort Lauderdale, and I was paying about $2,400 a month for a 2-bedroom and 2-bath apartment. When I moved here, I was able to cut that in half on my accommodations. But here's the kicker. The $2,400 covers all my overhead just living here. So what I was paying in Fort Lauderdale, $2,400 just on rent, that covers everything here in Santo Domingo. And of course it doesn't cover my entertainment, me going out to eat or going out to get a cigar, or even going out for drinks, but it covers all my overhead. And that's still a little bit less than $2,400. It's really around $2,200, $2,300 per month. So the cost of living, as you can see, was a factor. So let's move on to number three, the continuous rat race of the 9 to 5. Yes, now I understand not everybody can quit their job and move abroad and live in another country. And you know what? I didn't think I could either. But when I started focusing on it and putting a plan together and really dialing in on what I wanted, things started to happen for me where I was able to do it. So I had to get out of that system. I just could no longer stand that system. So now I work for myself. I was able to buy back a lot of my time to focus on some of the things that I like to do the most. And the last one is the senseless and random gun violence. Yes, the United States has gotten really dangerous over the last decade or so, where the violence just has gotten to a point where a lot of people, they are desensitized to it now. It's like when there's a mass shooting, it's like, oh, that's another one. And then the next day is business as usual, you know. And I have a daughter, and the last thing I was going to do was put my daughter in a public school in the United States and have me as a parent worried about whether she gonna come home. No, that wasn't gonna happen. And even for myself, I didn't want to be at a grocery store or at a mall or something, and some fool comes in because he's mad. Poor little Johnny. I don't have time for that. And I know somebody's gonna say, but there's crime in DR. I know it is. Of course there's crime in DR. There's crime everywhere. I mean, I haven't heard of any mass shootings anywhere. I haven't heard anybody running up in a school or anything like that. I mean, if you have, then let me know. I haven't heard of that. You know, I don't feel threatened when I go to the grocery store that somebody's going to come and shoot it up. I don't feel threatened if I'm inside a church, somebody's going to shoot the church up. I don't feel threatened when I'm at a restaurant, somebody's just going to walk up and just start killing everybody. I don't feel threatened like that here. So don't try to compare the crime here to the crime in the United States. It's not comparable. period. I don't care what you say. So don't try to convince me otherwise. So anyway, so those are some of the reasons why I decided to leave the United States and move to Dominican Republic.
I don't know why no one's talking about this, but there is a mass exodus of US citizens from the United States. Look, I'm a real estate agent in Costa Rica. I help foreigners move abroad, move to Costa Rica, and make a life here. I've been getting a ton of stories from clients who are absolutely spent. I'm working with a psychiatrist who helps teenagers. And when I asked her why she wants to move to Costa Rica, she said, it's because I have lost all hope. My patients have lost hope. And what's worse is I have lost hope too. And how can I possibly be of service to someone else if I don't believe it's not going to get any better? So what she's doing is saving herself, packing up her bags, and moving abroad. This is where we are.
Americans don't feel safe anymore in America, you know? The political climate, the rise of authoritarianism, censorship, division, and fear. Gun violence is a daily headline, you know? Mental health crises are skyrocketing. Millions are battling burnout, you know? People are losing their peace of mind. So they are moving to other countries like Mexico, Portugal, Costa Rica, and even parts of Africa. Many say they just want a simple life, you know, that actually feels like living. And this isn't about people hating on America. It's about people realizing that maybe the American dream they were sold was never meant for everyone, and that dream has turned into a nightmare, and people are finally waking up. When you have families working 2 or 3 jobs just to survive, when your healthcare feels like luxury, you know, instead of a right, when your environment constantly drains your energy, that's not living, that's survival. So Americans living are not unpatriotic, you know, they are desperate for peace, for sanity, and for balance. They are looking for what America promised but never delivered. Freedom. Freedom from debt, freedom from anxiety, and freedom from endless grind, you know? And they're finding it outside America. So people no longer want to chase the American dream. They want to live a human dream, one of peace, simplicity, and dignity. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video.